It finally happened against all odds. Nobody saw it coming. Curt Cignetti finally smiled.
Happy Tuesday and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. I'm Anthony Totri, joined as always by the one, the only Chicken Little himself, Erik Ruby. We got the Deli Man back behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. And I would say now more than ever, if you haven't already, take 5 seconds, hit that subscribe button because we are less than 1,000 subscribers away from 50K. We've got a personal goal that we're going to try and hit here at PHNX over the next couple of weeks. So help us get to that next level. Again, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way for us. Rubus, I mean, despite your prediction, I don't know if Carson Beck, if the folks in Miami just didn't get the message, but they failed. They failed. They lost to the Indiana Hoosiers, my Indiana Hoosiers, in the national championship, 27-21. Indiana doing something that nobody thought was possible a couple of seasons ago. Heck, even going into this season, they won the program's first national championship. The losingest program in college football history turned around and won a natty in today's era of college football. And I am absolutely amped to talk about how Arizona State, Erik, can do the exact same thing.
I mean, first of all, very rude of you to lead that entire conversation with, "Hey, you were wrong, and I was so right." Oh,
would
I
you
was more
expect
right
anything
than
else from me?
anybody. Oh no, I'm the most right person that's ever been alive. I will give you credit. You were an Indiana believer. You believed in the undefeated #1 team in the country throughout the season, and I think that's very brave of you.
Thanks,
Honestly,
man.
the fact that you were able to get multiple free meals out of believing in the undefeated #1 team in the
Still one
country.
TBD from the Deli Man back
Yeah.
there.
Kudos to you, man. Kudos to you. There's two of the biggest winners in America, Curt Cignetti and Anthony Totri.
And I
And
don't know who's won, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's me and then Cignetti or if it's Cignetti then me.
Can we put a poll in the chat? Call him Indy Anthony Totri. That's a good comment from Steven in the chat. Yeah, man, this was really, really cool. I mean, beyond just the fact that this is the losingest program in college football history, but the Fernando Mendoza story, not just the Miami story where he grew up down the street from Miami's campus, played college football there. His father and Mario Cristobal played high school football together. They didn't let him walk on. His journey, obviously, with his mom as well. Like, it is such a cool, maybe the single most storybook moment in sports history, which I think is really cool because a lot of people are looking at the NIL era and what college football has become, which is a little gross in certain aspects, and making it out to be like all bad and all terrible. But we've never, ever gotten a story like this, I think, in sports before, with this many storylines. A guy like Curt Cignetti that was a coordinator, at one of the biggest college football programs of all time, and then worked his way up at the head coach in multiple smaller institutions, takes a job at Indiana. Last year, wins National Coach of the Year. It's like, oh, well, what does he do this year? Okay, well, he just gets better, right? His team just gets better. All in all, just what an incredible story that we saw culminate in a national championship last night.
a story that feels like it's gonna be a movie sooner than later, right? Like
For
I can't
sure.
wait for Timothy Chalamet in a couple years to be playing Fernando Mendoza, only to be coached by Curt Cignetti, who is played by Tom Hanks. Like
Liam
I'm so
Neeson.
ready for that movie to come out. Like it's gonna be awesome. But no, in all reality, like it is a story, right? Like a storybook finish to the season, not just for Indiana, but like I feel like when it comes to sports and when it comes to specifically college football, it does feel like for the last, I don't know, 2 decades, it really has been a story of, okay, it's going to be one of the top 4 teams. And yes, I get it. Like Indiana was ranked #1 after they beat Ohio State. Like, but let's talk about the program, right? For the last 20 years, no one thought Indiana would do this. Nobody thought any program like Indiana would be capable of winning a national championship pretty much on the road, right? At Miami's place where the Natty was played at Hard Rock. So, like, it's always been the Bamas. It's always been the Ohio States. It's always been, the Georgias, the LSUs of the world. And I think the main takeaway that is going to be lasting, not just from that game, but really from the season, is that it really is possible. It's possible for any team in college football to have a turnaround like that, right? And the best part about it is you had 2 teams that were built entirely different that ultimately got to the same place, right? Say what you want about Miami and Carson Beck and all that. Like, they have more NFL talent on that team than Indiana does. That's just the truth. That's what you're going to see in April come the 2026 draft. More Hurricanes will likely be selected to go pro than Indiana. So it's not always about having the blue chip guys. It's not always about having who on 3 and 24/7 have as their top players available. And I think for Arizona State fans, Erik, over the last couple of seasons, it has been such a focus about the culture, right? About what is being built here. And I think it's easy to go day by day talking about this guy or this player or this coach or this move or this win or this loss and not see the bigger picture of what is being built here. What's the saying? Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Like, I know it happened fast for Indiana, but like these things take time. And I think what the Hoosiers were able to accomplish in 2026 sets the stage for every other college football program at this level to turn around to their team ahead of the 2026 season and say, look, see what they did? Nobody thought they could do it. We can do that same thing. And I would be shocked if Kenny Dillingham doesn't say that to his guys at some point prior to spring football.
Yeah, and I think there can be a difference drawn between doing it and doing it as quickly as Indiana did, because I don't know if we'll ever see this again. Specifically with Indiana, in 2 years, the turnaround that we've seen and just like how fast this program went from literal like worst to first, like quite literally
Yeah.
worst to first. Not just worst in the conference and not just best in the conference, like ASU, how they were predicted 2 seasons ago, but literal worst team in college football to best team in college football. This is an extreme case that if you try to replicate exactly, you'll never succeed, because you're not going to have a Curt Cignetti. You're not going to have a Fernando Mendoza, right? You're not going to be able to replicate the same path. But what it does is it opens up a world where it's, okay, look at some of what we could take from this. The idea that it's not a blue blood, like you mentioned, right? It's not this powerhouse football program that, has run college football for the last century, right? It's something else. It's a program nobody expected. It's a coach that nobody expected, right? It's a staff, it's a roster that nobody expected. And when you start breaking it down piece by piece, especially looking at what is now becoming more of a pay to play era in the NCAA, like that is really the gold that Arizona State is looking to strike. And I think Arizona State is set up in a very unique position. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean
No.
you just snap your fingers and you can be Curt Cignetti in Indiana. Like Kenny's been a head coach, at Arizona State longer than Curt Cignetti's been in Indiana, right? Most people have been head coaches at their current position longer than Curt Cignetti has been a head coach at Indiana. So I caution people from thinking that this is just going to be the new norm for everybody and that we're going to see stories like this often. I do think that what we saw this year was a one of one unique, story that will probably never come close to seeing again. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things that can be replicated and that those don't play in the favor of a lot of universities, but specifically, obviously, for us, Arizona State.
I think you'll probably see it like sooner again than you think. Maybe not to the same extent of like an Indiana going from where they were as a program to winning the national championship a couple years later. But in my eyes, like there has been so much conversation about the Big Ten and the SEC over the last however many years of like these two conferences dominate, right? Look what we saw from Texas Tech this year, right? The playoff aside, look what we saw, that level of dominance with a program that invested resources into that program. And again, they did it in a very different way. They did it in a very different way than Indiana did it, with just an exuberant amount of money at their players, right? And I know Mark Cuban talked about throwing a bunch of money at Indiana. I don't know how much he actually threw or was going to throw at that Hoosier football program. But like Texas Tech went from a middle-of-the-pack team to a team that was a juggernaut in conference play. Right? Indiana this past year beat Ohio State, a team that, a program that gets more 5 stars and 4 stars than anybody in the nation. So, like, I think with this era of college football, where there are so many folks that have issues with the transfer portal and have issues with NIL, and I think a lot of those concerns at times can be valid. Right? I understand it's frustrating to have a player tell you he's going to stay and then leave. Right. And that's not, it's like what Kenny said. It's don't hate the player, hate the game. Right. It's an adult. The adults created this problem, not the kids. The kids are just capitalizing on their name, image, and likeness. That's it. Right. At the end of the day. And you can have issues with those decisions. But these types of stories come from the transfer portal. They come from NIL, from coaches and programs being able to say, you know what, we want this guy. We believe this guy can get it done here. And so they're able to pay him, right? Like this is not something that you would have gotten 15, 20 years ago because the transfer portal wasn't a place where you had to sit out a year if you were transferring, right? Or where if you were going to pay somebody, you had to do it completely under the table. So you didn't have that opportunity. And now more than ever, coaches and staffs can really build the rosters that they feel like they need. And I think Cignetti said it even as recent as last night, saying where like it wasn't always about who's the best player, right? And I think he pointed out, talking about how they don't have a lot of NFL guys on that roster, but they have guys that fit the bill, fit the culture of what he wanted to build at IU, which is now seemingly a sustainable program. Right? Like if you go and look, if we're having this conversation of anybody can win the national championship, including Arizona State, look what Indiana versus Miami was in recruiting at the high school ranks in the transfer portal over the last 2 seasons that Cignetti has been at IU. In 2024, this is just recruiting from high school, okay? IU was ranked 66th. Teams ahead of them, Toledo, Washington State, Tulsa, Cal, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Rutgers, Maryland, UNC, etc. Right? Miami was ranked 4th. 3 5 stars, 11 4 stars, 13 3 stars. Recruiting at the high school ranks in 2024. In 2025, recruiting in the high school ranks. After a successful 2024 season for Curt Cignetti in IU, Indiana was ranked 49th in the recruiting class of 2025 kids. Where was Miami? They were 14th with 16 4 stars, 5 3 stars. The teams ranked ahead of IU, Minnesota, UCLA, Arkansas, Kentucky, Nebraska. That's recruiting high school ranks. What about the transfer portal? The transfer portal in 2024. IU had 2 4 stars and 26 3 stars. They were ranked 30th in the transfer class, behind Purdue, TCU, Syracuse, UCF, UNC, NC State. Miami ranked number 10. In 2025, going into this season, IU had 3 4-star transfers and 18 3-stars. They had the 25th best portal class according to 24/7. Teams ranked ahead of them: UCLA, Colorado, Mississippi State, UNC. Miami, they were ranked 3rd. The rankings don't mean anything. They don't. And I think there's fan bases and there's national media, even us at sometimes, can get caught up in, wow, they got a 4-star, a high 4-star. They got the best transfer they've ever gotten in program history. It's not about the rankings. It's about what the coaches are able to do with that player in their system, in their program at that specific university. Does it fit the culture, right? Does it fit with the players that you already have? Does it make sense to add this player or that player in the locker room? What's the developmental piece of it all kind of look like, right? And I'm not saying this to bash on Miami, because Miami still made the national championship with those types of players. So I think in today's era, it's not so much, hey, I need to do what Miami's doing. I need to go and do what Oregon's doing, right? Where it's, I'm going to go get what is considered the highest rated player. And that's not how coaches do it, right? They don't look at 24/7 and say, you know what, Pete Nakos at On3 has got this guy as the top player available, right? They've got their own systems of scouting players and players that they want to get. It just so happens that those players are elite level high school players or college transfers that they're able to land at their respective schools. But Indiana, in the way that they did it, said, you know what, this is what we have. This is what we want to have. These are the types of players, and they went and got them, whether you like them or not. They got their quarterback from Cal. They got a good chunk of impact players from JMU that followed Curt Cignetti from that school to IU. You don't need to have blue bloods to get it done, right? So you can hate the transfer portal. You can hate recruiting rankings, whatever. Sometimes they're great in the case of Miami, where you knock it out the park, right? Knock it out the park by the industry standard of 24/7 Sports, On3, whatever, that tell you that they hit a home run. Or you could do it IU's way, where it's like, you know what? Maybe these guys aren't ranked the highest players by these outlets, but you trust your coach, right? That's why they have the job. You trust the staff. I think oftentimes, Erik, there's so much from the fan bases and national media of like, well, Ohio State, they got the number 1 transfer class, number 1 recruiting class, whatever. I don't know if that's accurate right now, but let's just use Ohio State as an example, right? They got that, and the fan base, they're amped, right? They're juiced. Hell yeah. We got the best available players per who? Per Pete Nakos? Per 24/7? I'm not picking on Pete here, but that's just like the nature of it. When in reality, like, you got to have faith and trust the people that have these positions, that they know what they're doing and they know what they're building. And Curt Cignetti and Mario Cristobal are perfect separate examples on opposite ends of the seesaw here that show you that they can get it done their way.
Yeah, I mean, look, you said a lot there that I think was right. I think one thing I'd push back on is you said the stars don't mean anything. I would say they don't mean everything, right? Like having this blue chip talent, like Amarian Miller, sure, you want to call him a 4-star, 5-star, 3-star, whatever. We know he's an impactful football player. A lot of times these are impactful players, but it's how you use them, right? The benefit of having a good system and a good coaching staff is that you can find guys that are 2 stars and 3 stars that end up being 5 stars in your program and end up being 5-star impact players on a college level, right? And, you know, you can look at it 2 ways. Like, yeah, Indiana had the Heisman this year, had the single best player in college football as voted on by media members, right? But coming out of high school, he was literally not even like a top 100 and like 75.
He was a 2-star recruit.
Yeah.
That's why I'm telling you stars don't matter.
And that's the thing is like, I think that they don't always matter. And there will always be stories where guys prove that wrong and right. But I still think that for a majority of teams that are going to end up making it deep into the college football playoffs, you're going to have some high-star guys. Again, like I said with Indiana, like how often are you going to be able to go and build a team off of JMU transfers and Cal quarterbacks to go win a championship? Honestly, my guess is if you're not Curt Cignetti, you're probably not going to see that anywhere else. And that's fine, because when you look at Arizona State specifically, if that's kind of what we're trying to get at here, is that Arizona State has shown that they have the ability to get high-end talent, and they've had that ability since before Kenny Dillingham. Obviously, Kenny's a great part of that, but like Jaden Daniels was in this building, right? That's a 5-star quarterback. out of high school, that's a guy who went on to win the Heisman, right?
So
Like
was Jaden
you
Rashada.
so right, and that's
Like,
two examples of guys who are 5 stars that worked out in different ways, in different senses. And obviously, Sam wasn't a 5 star. We saw how that worked out here. Neither was Cam Scatterbo. It doesn't mean everything, but it doesn't mean nothing, right? And so when you look at what Kenny's doing, I think that this transfer portal class is kind of a good example of it, where it's like, hey, we got some top end guys. These are guys that we think can be legitimately some of the best players in the conference, some of the best players in college football. And then we're getting other guys that you don't know that are going to be impact players on this team, and finding the right way to blend all of those together. So I don't know if you can lean all the way into what we saw Indiana do. And again, when they got to Indiana, we're talking about literally the best player in college football, right? That's about as blue chip as a blue chip prospect goes. Fernando Mendoza is probably going to go number 1 overall, right? But it's about what do you do with them when they get in through your door. And that's the Indiana story. And that's to an extent when we see guys leave Arizona State, that's also the Arizona State story.
it's a fascinating conversation, and I'm excited to keep having it on the other side of our first break.
We all already know that Phoenix is one of the best sports cities in America, but this spring they're raising the bar to a whole new level. And where else but Phoenix Raceway? For the first time ever, NASCAR and NTT IndyCar Series are racing during the same weekend at Phoenix Raceway, and you get a front row seat to all of it. Not just a front row seat, but you can get the best access in motorsports. I'm talking going inside the garage, walking the track, meeting the drivers, catching the pre-race concert, and no sport brings fans closer. Plus, there are camping options available and a bunch of different ticket options as well. So this spring, check it out, March 5th through the 8th, as 2025 Cup Series champion Kyle Larson returns to the track where he won it all just a couple of months prior. Again, NASCAR, NTT IndyCar Series sharing the same track on the same day. You'll want to be able to say that you witnessed history. March 5th through the 8th. Secure your seats now at the link in our description.
Look, I got one simple question for you. Do you want to make money in 2026? If the answer is yes, maybe, or anywhere in between, our friends over at Arizona Lottery, well, they're giving you a chance to do it with their multiplier scratchers. They are a perfect way to add to your life here in 2026. Now, with the multiplier scratchers from the Arizona Lottery, you guys can multiply the good things in life. We're talking vacation, relaxation, and then, of course, a big one, celebration. Because with over $270 million in prizes, that's right, you heard it correct, over $270 million in prizes, you guys could win big enough to do more of the things you love in life. Now, multiplier tickets, they start at just $1, and they've got prizes up to $5 million. And look, if you don't play, you can't win. So with access to over 3,500 retailers across the state, you guys can play whenever and wherever you'd like. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. And if you're new to the chat, you might notice that Sharon, Wes Beasy, Desert Vulture, and a few others in our chat, well, they got a little badge next to their name, and that's signifying that they are a part of the supporters club, the green M&M in there as well. Make sure you guys sign up for the supporters club. Right now, PHNX has more supporters than any other all-city out there. Okay, so let's continue to add these supporters right here in the PHNX Sun Devils chat specifically. Get access to a bunch of emojis. You guys get a super chat every single month. And we, again, really, really appreciate everybody that is here. If you are a part of the supporters club, drop your favorite emoji that you guys have access to right now. Plenty more on the way. And again, if you're just now joining us, we're less than 1,000 subscribers away from 50K. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Again, it goes a long way for us.
Can I say
Erik,
something on that real quick?
you
The
absolutely
subscribe
can.
button. I'm a culprit of this with other channels where it's like you think you're subscribed because it gets pushed into your algorithm, or you're like, oh yeah, like I support them. And anybody who watches, we appreciate. Anybody that listens, we appreciate. Like, even if that's all that you do, that still does help us. But hitting that subscribe button, especially like, look, the difference between 48 and 49K is about like one millionth as important as the difference between 49K and 50K. Like that's just kind of how these things work on YouTube. And as a channel, it helps us out so much to be able to approach opportunities and places and companies and be like, hey, we're a channel with 50,000 subscribers. And so if you like what we do, if you enjoy listening to us talk every single day, the way that we enjoy talking to each other and talking with all of you, share it with a friend, tell them to subscribe. If you listen on audio and you don't even go on YouTube, just make a YouTube account and subscribe and then just leave it. Right? Like, there are a bunch of different ways and it's literally so free. It's the
It is.
freest thing on earth. It's never cost you any money at all. So it goes a long way. Liking and watching the video is obviously, really great too. We'd like you to do that on all of them, but that subscribe button, that doesn't go away. Like that's there forever. And we really do appreciate that.
JJB says, got all my ASU Hoop sickos to subscribe. There's 5 of us. Appreciate you, JJB, and everybody else that is subscribed. Getting back to the conversation that we're having about how it's possible for Arizona State to win a national championship based off of what Curt Cignetti in Indiana just pulled off last night and really all season long. And Erik, you and I talking about stars, right? Stars, recruiting ranks, all that stuff. And I think, again, we've had this conversation briefly before, and I think we've always kind of found ourselves on opposite aisles here. In the Green M&M in the chat talking about Vontaze Burfict, right? Saying that Vontaze Burfict was a program-defining player. Vontaze Burfict, for those of you that don't know, the highest-rated Arizona State commit in Sun Devil history out of high school. He was a 5-star. The Sun Devils have only ever had 2 5-stars by 24/7 Sports. Jaden Rashada was a former 5-star at one point, but all-time commits, it goes Vontaze Burfict, who was a 5-star, and Zach Miller at tight end, who was also a 5-star. 24/7 Sports specifically only gives out 32. They only give out 32 5-star rankings to signify the NFL's first round of 32 first-round players, right? So I push back on that, not to say that Vontaze Burfict wasn't a program-defining player, because he absolutely, certainly was. He 1,000% was a program-defining player for a very positive reason for this program, and he was a 5-star. Cam Scadaboo was a program-defining player who was not even a rated player, right?
Sure.
Somebody that was a 0-star. And I get there are folks that are going to go out there and say, and Rubus, this may be your follow-up, Cam Scadaboo's 1 in a million, right? And he absolutely is. But when I say stars don't matter, I more so think of, again, who is giving these stars, right? It's not the current coaches. It's not the current GMs in college football, right? Saying that we think that this guy is a phenomenal player. Keith Abney has potential to be a first-round pick, right? Stock's flying through the roof. At the very latest, he's a second-round pick. He was a 3-star a couple years ago, right? And I get it. There are folks that are going to say that you would never take a 3-star player over a 5-star player. I can't tell you that that's true. I can't sit here and tell you that I wouldn't take a 5-star over a 3-star or a 3-star over a 5-star, because guess what? It's the coaches that are evaluating the talent.
No,
right?
And I 100% agree with you there. But I think you're putting definites on things that you can't put definites on.
What am I putting definites on? That stars don't matter?
Stars don't matter because.
But tell me why they matter. Tell me why stars.
Green M&M put it well. Green M&M put it well. If stars didn't matter, then Bama wouldn't be Bama. Ohio State wouldn't be Ohio State. Stars don't mean everything. Stars don't mean everything, but they do matter, right? It's if they didn't matter at all, then you wouldn't have the programs that are constantly at the top of college football getting these players that are ranked that way. Now, individually, on a player-to-player basis, there are times where a 3-star will end up better than a 5-star, either in college football or in the pros, or a 0-star is better. Fernando Mendoza was, the best player on the field and had a game-winning touchdown play in the national championship. And he didn't have star. He had 2 stars, right? Like you are right in a lot of what you're saying, but I think the way that you're phrasing it is just one step too far to where it is possible to win without getting those types of stars. But to say that they outright don't matter, I think is is downplaying the impact that these high star guys have had. And it's like, look, there are plenty of stories of 5 stars that don't work out, or 4 stars that don't work out, that don't work hard. And again, like, not to single out a Jaden Rashada here, but like, yeah, this is a guy that was at one point a 5-star. Obviously, his career has gone completely off of the rails, right? But you can also see so many times that these 4 stars, 5 stars, highly recruited guys, top end transfer portal guys who are also just really, 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 really good. Like, really good. And so to me, it's like, it's not everything. You can build a winning program by not getting a bunch of 4 stars and 5 stars, and stars are certainly overrated in a lot of senses. And I do agree with you on that. But to say that they outright don't matter at all, I would just disagree with that, because I think that's just putting a blanket statement on it when there's too many success stories out of that, and too many programs who have built a lot of
But there's
success
just
off
as
of that
many.
to say it doesn't matter.
There's just as many success stories with 3 stars, 0-star guys
Sure,
that
but there's
nobody
way
thought.
more guys. There's a way larger talent pool. There's a way
Yeah.
large, like, it's like you're talking about 32 guys out of every high school class versus the thousands of
But
others.
what
Like,
I'm
yeah, you're
saying
gonna
is,
get
when
other
you say
you're
there's
gonna
a
get other
larger
good stories.
talent pool, you say there's a larger talent pool. It's sites, it's websites that are ranking these players, right? And if you don't believe
Sure.
me, it's totally fine. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Can we agree that Nick Saban is the best college football coach of all time?
Yeah.
Okay. He said this yesterday about the whole star ranking. Ironically enough that we're bringing this up because IU was in the Natty yesterday. He said, quote, this is from when he was at Alabama. We never ever looked at, and I know Cignetti doesn't either, at how many stars a guy has. Because I think what you all need to do is look at who's giving out the stars. They don't know their ass from a handful of sand when it comes to what a football player is. So why would you as a coach depend on somebody who's not even a coach evaluating players to give them stars? I say all the time, Josh Jacobs, NFL running back, had no stars. And Damian Harris was a 5-star. They were both really good players, don't get me wrong, but Josh Jacobs was a first-round pick, and Damian Harris was a third-round pick. Josh Jacobs is still playing, and Damian Harris is not. And I would also add to that Josh Jacobs had no stars, and then Alabama offered him, and 24/7 Sports immediately that same day gave him a 4-star ranking.
Yeah, if the argument is that stars are flawed and that the people giving the stars are
That's not what he said.
correct,
He said flawed. No. He said they never looked at him. If Nick Saban doesn't look at stars as, again, one of the winningest coaches in college football history, you don't need stars to succeed. Sure.
But at the end of the day, and I totally get what you're saying, and I think you and I do this a lot. We're like, we're like 51-49 on something, but we could turn it into like a 2-hour conversation. Like, yes, and I agree with that, and I get that. But also, if you go back and you could go look at all of Nick Saban's recruiting classes, right? And you tell me how many high-star guys there are. Yeah, 24/7 Sports, when it comes to, being right on this stuff and all that, especially when you're comparing it to what coaches can bring, yeah, they don't know crap. Duh. Like, we don't know crap compared to the coaches. That's for sure a fact. But also another fact is, if you go look up and down the rosters of every single consistent blue blood in college football, the reality of the situation is, more often than not, they've got a lot more 4 and 5 stars than everybody else. And guess what? Usually they're better than everybody else. That doesn't mean that it can't happen the other way. And that doesn't mean that they're guaranteed success. There are lots of 5-star failure stories and 4-star failure stories and a ton of 3-star successes. And it's at these big schools too. But sometimes, even though you're not going to trust 24/7 Sports to correctly identify everything, sometimes dudes are just good at football. And you know what? These top end colleges want the guys that are good at football. And look, and I think we could sit here, Totri, and I think if you were given a choice and you said you can either have your choice of 4 and 5-star guys, right? Or you can't, then you say, oh no, I'll take it. I'll take my choice of them. I'd like to be able to go out there and identify the talent that I like. There are a lot of these guys that have super high ceilings that hit. I'm like 98% of the way there with you. I just can't say that they don't matter at all. even if they're flawed, even if they're not correct all of the time. I think there's a proven track record with a lot of these schools, besides Indiana, obviously, that have consistently competed at the top of things, like the team opposing them in the national championship that was top 10 in these recruiting rankings and these transfer ratings with stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, high 3 stars, right? Like, the other team that was literally a Carson Beck meatball away from potentially winning a national championship had all of these players, and we've been having a completely different conversation. Like, it's just,
I don't think we would, because it's still Indiana how they got there.
sure, but
And I'm
like
not saying
winning makes
it's
it
again,
different.
first off, I think we're still a little bit more than a Carson Beck INT away. You still have to go punch it in the end zone.
I just want to say
IU had like the best red
Carson
zone
Beck
defense
meatball.
in college football. So I would still refrain from saying they were a play away. But like, and I think Wes Beasy had said it earlier, like an offensive lineman listed at 6'8", 300 pounds is going to be a 4-star guy. You're a 4-star because of your size.
Sure.
Right? Not necessarily based off of your talent. Right? And I think, again, it goes back to like, some of these guys don't even get ranked, or some of these guys go from being 4 stars. This happened in the case of ASU, I think a couple years ago, where you had somebody that's a 4-star and then they commit to a separate school and they lose a star. They're a 3-star guy. Or you have the situation with Josh Jacobs, where they weren't even ranked, and then Bama gives them an offer, and it's like, oh, wait, this guy's good. Right? Like, again, they're flawed, right? Nothing is perfect, but I think, again, the whole moral of this story that I'm trying to get out here is you can have a roster full of 3-star guys, and you can win a national championship.
Sure.
That is point blank period what happened.
Agreed.
You can also have a roster full of what's considered 5-star players and also make the national championship. But you don't need a roster of what folks consider the best of the best to get here anymore. That's not the era of college football that you're in at this point in time, right? Like, we're in the era now where you have Kenny Dillingham at the helm of Arizona State, won a conference championship in 2024, first year in the Big 12, slightly down year based off of quote-unquote expectations in 2025, injuries, etc. It just didn't work out. And we can sit here in 2026 and say, you know what? They had a awesome transfer portal class. They had a recruiting class that doesn't rank in the top 25. What does that mean? In 2026, it doesn't mean shit. What it means is the coaching staff has identified the players that they like, that they want, that they see a vision for at their respective school, this case being Arizona State, that they believe can get them to where they want to be.
Yeah, and that I 100% agree with you. There are more paths opened up, and you can do it without the stars, and it is a flawed system that you should not put all your money on. I 100% agree with you on that, Anthony Totri. You win
Hit
again.
the like button. Hit the subscribe button. We're going to continue having this conversation on the other side of our segment.
This happens all the time in life. It's called the unexpected, and sometimes the unexpected is good, like Indiana football winning a national championship, and sometimes it's bad, like a serious accident or an injury. And if that ever happens to you, you want to have this number handy. Of course, that's 602-783-8841. 602-783-8841. That's the number to the husband and wife law team. That's the number that's getting you a practice 100% dedicated to injury and wrongful death. The number to a practice with lawyers that actually go to trial and that are happy to make you and all of their clients a bunch of different guarantees. Like, you can cancel your fee agreement at any time for any reason. You can receive at least as much in your pocket as they receive further fee. Even if they have to reduce their attorney's fee to do so, you may speak with one of their lawyers as often as you choose about anything you want to discuss. And while nobody can guarantee the outcome of a legal case, they guarantee to tell you all the good and all the bad so that you can make your most informed decision on the most important thing in your life. If you've had a serious injury, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841 or visit their website at the link in our show notes and tell them that PHNX sent you.
Look, a lot of our partners here at PHNX, well, they help you make money, give you the chance to make money or save money. And one thing's for sure, with all of those extra dollar bills, you're going to need a place to put them. Look no further than our friends over at Mountain America Credit Union, specifically their My Style checking account, because it has built-in perks and benefits just for you. And especially if you are a fan of those Arizona State Sun Devils, well, Mountain America Credit Union, they are a proud sponsor of Arizona State University. You'll notice if you've been to an Arizona State football game over the last couple of seasons, it is now Mountain America Stadium. So make sure you take a trip, you visit it in 2026. Plus, Mountain America Credit Union going the extra mile for those student athletes right here in Tempe. They did it last year. I'm sure they're going to be doing it again here in 2026. Of course, they're dedicated to guiding members and communities forward. Learn more at macu.com/ASU, insured by NCUA. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Loans on approved credit. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button again, and drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. A Green M&M in the chat saying, well, then why hasn't ASU won a national championship with a roster full of 3 stars? My response would be, well, Kenny Dillingham's only been here a couple years, right? Who was before Kenny? Herman Edwards. Who was before him? Todd Graham, right? Like, you haven't had the staff. You haven't had the coach. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't take a perfect marriage from staff to roster to administration to do what Indiana did. There's a reason we're calling it a storybook, right? This is like Disney couldn't even put together a better movie than what the Hoosiers just did in this past season of college football. It takes perfection, right? It takes a just everybody being hashtag aligned, Erik, to be able to do something like this. And ASU hasn't had that in the past. The closest thing you saw was 2024. But I'm not sitting here telling you, oh, they're going to win a natty in 2026, right? I'm saying it's possible. I would also argue that the reason that more teams haven't been able to accomplish this is in the same tone of, era of college football where it's NIL transfer portal. It's also an expanded playoff, right? You now have 8 more spots than you originally did to fight for a national championship. Indiana's a great story in its own right. I think Miami would have been just as great of a story because guess what? Nobody, myself included, or I should say myself along with a bunch of others, didn't believe that the Hurricanes should have even been in the playoff based off of what had occurred throughout the season, right? I definitely thought Notre Dame should have been in over Miami. Miami beat A&M at A&M's place. Miami went to Arizona, took care of Ole Miss, right? Like, they had a difficult path, and they proved that they belong there. But now, because you have 12 spots, teams that, the average fan or national media don't necessarily think should be in the playoff, well, they get an opportunity to prove it. And I think that's just as important. That's just as important as having a roster of NIL of players making a bunch of money, or 3 stars or 5 stars, or the transfer portal. Hell, look to the 2024 season with Arizona State. If we're tying it back to the Sun Devils, if we were 6 years ago, Arizona State's team that they had wouldn't have been a playoff team. They simply wouldn't have. You wouldn't have seen them in there. In the old format, you wouldn't have seen Miami Hurricanes in the playoff because it was 4 teams. And it was all, guess what, Erik? They got 5 stars. They got a bunch of dudes. They played the school of the deaf and blind in week 10 in the SEC to remain undefeated. Let's put them in the playoff.
Okay, I have a question for you. And
okay.
I want you to answer honestly, okay?
Okay.
Do you think it is harder to win a national championship building through getting 3 stars and the way that Curt Cignetti did it, rather than going and winning a national championship for a school like a Georgia or an Ohio State that gets 4 stars and 5 stars?
Is it harder?
Is it harder?
I mean, it's kind of a loaded question because I don't know, like, who. In theory, it would be harder. Yes.
Well, I think the fact that we're talking about this as such and rightfully so, such a specific, unique, like, who saw this coming? Indiana wins national championship. again, not to kind of harp back on the thing we were talking about 10 minutes ago, it's like, I think that kind of proves that sometimes stars do matter. They might be overrated, but like if it's harder to go and win a national championship that way, does that not mean that it's easier to have a better team with players that are so-called 4 and 5 stars? That's just, it's just kind of been a sticking point for me. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. It doesn't mean it's not possible. That's the important thing here, is that there is absolutely a path forward. And I was with you. I didn't think that Miami deserved to be in the college football playoffs. I am pretty shocked with how things have turned out. Right? Obviously shocked with Indiana in like the grand scheme of things. But when it comes to like this season, we all knew who Indiana was. We knew that they were one of the best teams in college football for a majority of the season. Miami was a team that was up and down and whoa, what's going to happen with them? And then they find their way there. I think that's also a testament to overall, I think athletes are just getting better. Right? I think you're baselining, you're seeing it in all sports. This is my big argument in the NBA for, players now are better than players in before, not because like, the players before were trash, but just like athletes inherently are getting better. They're evolving more. They're more athletic. They're bigger. They're stronger. We're talking about taller, stronger, faster DBs, taller, stronger, faster wide receivers, quarterbacks. That like it's just how we evolve as humans. And I think when there are only so many star rankings to go around based on a very flawed system that they are given out with, you're going to get a 3-star nowadays that might have been as talented as a 5-star 25 years ago, right? In most cases, not. But like you're having guys that are rotational pieces that are being flown under the radar. Like there's so much saturation in high-level athletes now at the college level that you're able to go to a JMU and like, hey, these are some of the best athletes in the world. Like, yeah, they might be 3 stars. Yeah, they might not be, what you would expect from an Ohio State or Miami, but let's not get it twisted. Like, yeah, they were coached really well. These are still some of the best individual athletes in the entire world. Fernando Mendoza is going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft.
He shouldn't be, by the way.
But he's going to be.
He shouldn't be.
But he's going to be. And if he's not the number 1 pick, or if he shouldn't be the number 1 pick, he's at least a first-round pick. Right?
Yeah,
and
but I don't think... This is why, and this is in a totally different conversation about the Heisman and what the award actually is versus what it is. Like, Fernando Mendoza is not the best player in all of college football. He's just not. Like, it's just what it is. If Fernando came out next year in 2027, he wouldn't even be a top 10 pick. We wouldn't be having this conversation, right? If he came out in last year's quarterback class or the year before, he wouldn't be the first overall pick. He's not the best player in college football, yet he is the Heisman winner, right? As a former 2-star guy from Cal to Indiana, right? So let's play a game because I feel like we keep going back and forth with this star conversation that you're on one side and I'm on the other side. We all know the story of Cam Scadaboo. We all know the 0-star who did what he did.
Yeah.
Leaf Faltanu, how many stars did he have coming out of high school?
2
stars. Would you say he was instrumental in Arizona State's success, the best offensive lineman on a conference championship team?
Yes, I would. Look, man.
Okay, what about Drew Pine?
If you want to
go,
what
was Drew Pine? What was Drew Pine, Eric?
I'll start pulling up 4 and 5 stars too, man.
That's fine. You could do it. You could do it. But what was Drew Pine? What was Drew Pine coming out of high school?
He was what, a 4-star?
He was a 4-star quarterback. What was Bram Walden? Name you probably haven't heard in some time because he doesn't play college football anymore.
Hey, okay, I got a question for you. What was Will Anderson coming out of high school?
He was a top 10 guy.
What are we doing?
He was a top 10 player.
He was a 5-star guy.
Yeah.
Right? 5-star.
Absolutely. I'm talking about Arizona State, man.
He's a top 3 edge rusher in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
He was one of the best
and who are some of the guys ahead of them and below him? Bryce Young was one in that class.
What I'm doing right now is I'm just pulling up Alabama's recruiting class rankings because I get what you're doing, and you're not wrong, but you're taking it.
But this is perfect example. Last thing I'll say about the stars. Last thing I'll say about the stars because I think this is a perfect example. Alabama was a CFP team. Not that I thought they were a CFP team. They were kind of especially down the stretch, right? A roster full of 5-star and 4-star players, right or wrong?
Right.
Talent that's going to go to the NFL 1,000%. Indiana spanked them.
Yeah.
Beat Alabama's ass in a way that they haven't been beaten in a long, long time. Full of NFL talent. Why was that? Why did they get their ass beat?
Coaching. They were a better team.
They were a better team with better coaches, right?
But I'm not arguing
with a better culture, a better vision, right?
That's the thing is, I'm not arguing that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Brock Bowers was I'm just saying it's not you're saying it's nothing. I'm saying it's not everything. Right. I agree.
I'm saying it's up to the it's you can have a 5-star player at what somebody else would view as a 2-star program and it not work out for more than one reason.
100%. 100%.
That's what I'm saying here. Is it doesn't matter if you come in
that works out too because they're a really good talent. I bet Shane just hitting his head against the wall right now.
Okay, we're done. Move on. What were you saying about Fernando Mendoza?
I wasn't going anywhere with Fernando Mendoza, but when it comes down to this whole thing, going away from the players and more to seemingly try and wrap up this conversation, is the players are one piece of it. The program is another piece, and the coaches are, I would argue, maybe the biggest piece of it all, right?
Agreed.
Because in the same semblance, I'm not getting back on the conversation about it, is that same IU roster doesn't win a natty at Colorado, right?
100%
They just don't. It's about the culture, it's about the place, and it's about the staff and the belief that the players have in that staff. So to wrap up this conversation about how Arizona State can do it, and IU is proof, not just based off of the roster, but also based off of the staff. And I think we spend such a big portion of our time talking about Kenny Dillingham did this, Kenny Dillingham did that. And I think in some vein, it's correct being the head coach of the program. But look around this staff and look at how long they've been able to really retain some key guys, right? In this whole big picture. The Brian Wards defensively, the Brian Carringtons, the AJ Coopers, the Jason Mons, the Sean Aguanos, right? The Hines Ward at this point in time, who at one point several seasons ago was turning down NFL offers, right? NFL phone calls to get him to the next level. Like, you have to be able to not just have players that have that same vision, but I don't know if we talk enough about the culture among the staff.
Yeah.
Right? And how that matters and how that matters long term to that product that you're ultimately building.
Well, and we hear it from the players that do commit here, whether they're a 3-star or a 4-star. We hear it from them. They say, like, yeah, these coaches, I relate to them. Like, I can feel that. And 100% the most important thing is the coaching and the culture and the system. Because even these other schools, you look at Alabama, you look at Georgia, you look at Ohio State, they don't just collect the top-end talent and then just sit on their hands or play with toys. Like, they go out there and they coach them really well. Right? They have a really good system. They have a really good culture, a really good identity. Like, these are non-negotiables at the top of college football. You could talk about players and rankings and who you have where and transfer and whatever. It doesn't matter if you're a bad coach. It doesn't matter if you have a bad culture. It doesn't matter if you don't have guys who know what to do, how to do it at the highest level. And it doesn't matter if you don't get the most out of your players. So that is what Arizona State has. I know that at certain points throughout the season, a lot of people were not happy. But if you look at what they were able to get out of specific guys, you can see that this coaching staff did about the best that they could, given the circumstances and the situations. And going into next year, they've reloaded and got themselves quite a bit of talent, top end and sneaky talent, that I think they're going to be able to get a lot out of. And that is why everybody's so excited about Arizona State. Yes, everybody that's an ASU fan was happy with Cam Scadaboo, thrilled about the Big 12 championship, all of that. But the reason why people are excited for the future is because of Kenny Dillingham, Sean Aguano, Hines Ward, Jason Mons, Brian Carrington, Brian Ward, Deron Reynolds, literally everybody, every single assistant coach. That's why people are excited about the future. That's why we can sit here and talk about, hey, Indiana doing this means ASU can do it. Because they follow the same model of system, culture, and coaching. Those are the three most important things in college football.
Yeah. The Green M&M in the chat, you're cherry picking here, man. Saying so basically this ASU program that's been poverty for our entire lives wasn't bad because of the talent level they could get. It's not that. It's what I said before. You need a perfect marriage all the way across, and you need a perfect marriage in just about every era of college football. Yeah, there was a point in time where Arizona State could go undefeated in the Pac-12 and it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't make the playoff. Like, that's just what it was because of the SEC bias, because of the Big Ten bias, right? There are situations where that happens. So, no, it's not necessarily just talent. Were there rosters that were more talented than the ones that you've had of recent memory that just didn't do anything? Yeah. And that's not necessarily all on the players. The players play the game, but it's up to the coaches to get them ready. It's up to the coaches to develop the talent. It's up to the coaches to bring them to the university and do something with it. It's not just a player league, right? It's not just, boom, I've got a roster full of what's considered the best of the best, 5-star guys. Are they talented? Yes. But it's what you do with the talent. It's about who is coaching the talent. It's about the locker room. It's about the culture. Jaden Daniels, Brandon Ayuk, and N'Keal Harry all shared the field at Arizona State at one point in time. What did they do? The answer is nothing. It's not because they weren't talented. It's because they had a bozo running the program. It takes a perfect marriage. You need talent, yes. Who identifies that talent and how you view it? Well, that's the eye of the beholder, right? Something like that. Like,
it's a simple question. Has there ever been a poorly coached team that won a national championship?
No. Not once.
There's been a lot of talented teams that have lost and that have not won national championships. There has never been a poorly coached team in any sport that has won a championship, except for maybe the Celtics when Doc Rivers was their coach. Other than that, every other coach has done a good job helping their team win a championship. Even, I'm a basketball guy. Even the Bulls in the 90s, they were well coached. The Warriors, when they were 73-9, even though they lost that year, but the Warriors, when they had their dynasty, they were well coached. Like the Lakers, when they went on their three-peat, they were well coached. Like, poorly coached teams don't win championships, even if they're the most talented teams. We see that every single year in almost every single sport.
David says wrong. N'Keal was gone by 28-19. Who am I thinking of? Ricky? Was it Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk on that team with Jaden?
It was Ayuk and Darby.
There you go.
Okay.
Talent.
Okay, I'm taking a hard left to get away from this conversation because I need to get this out. I feel like I'm taking fucking crazy pills every time I go on the internet and I see people talking about how much they love Fernando Mendoza's personality.
Oh yeah,
are we watching the same thing? Like, are we listening to the same guy? He is insufferable. I don't care if he has a great attitude and he is the least authentic person I have ever laid my eyes on.
Oh, you think he's faking it?
Oh my dude, he's looking into the camera. He's not talking to people. He's looking through. It's horrible. It's the worst thing. The buddy is updating his LinkedIn. Like it's so played out. I hate this guy. I hate him. I hate him so much. He's an awesome football player. I think his game's going to translate pretty well if he's given a good circumstance in the NFL because he's not relying on these RPO offenses that a lot of the quarterbacks have had success in college football. He makes some good throws. He's a gamer. Holy shit, does he suck off the field. He is so annoying.
In 15 years from now, it's either going to be breaking news, multiple bodies found in the front yard of Fernando Mendoza mansion, or it's going to be, hey, remember when Fernando Mendoza retired 5 years into football after being really good, but because he wanted to be a pastor? Like, I don't feel like there's really going to be any in between here with that guy. Like, he scares me a little bit, I'll be honest.
I think he could just be socially awkward. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like,
no, he's not, because he's so articulate and he's a confident guy. He's definitely not socially awkward. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
And you hate it.
I hate it.
I hope he's a Raider. I can say that as a Chargers fan. I hope Fernando Mendoza is the next quarterback of the Las Vegas.
Lee and I were talking about it. He is like the least Raider of all time.
He is. He absolutely is.
You know what team I think he would fit the best on? The Indianapolis Colts. He just feels like a Colt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, and we had this conversation briefly this morning, Shane. The Raiders aren't a quarterback away, right? So, like, depending on who they hire as the
first
coach.
overall pick is ever a quarterback away.
I just don't think. Well, normally you can talk yourself into we're not a quarterback away, but this guy's so talented that he is going to at least alleviate it.
That's drafting a quarterback first overall in general. Like they're almost never the most talented player.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Caleb Downs is probably the best player in this draft.
Or buddy who was on the field last night, Ruben Bain. Like,
yeah, short arm Bain. I don't think the Raiders select Mendoza first overall. I don't think the Raiders stay put at first overall. I'm going to be honest, and people are going to hate it. I think the next quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals is going to be Fernando Mendoza some way.
If he is, I'm retiring.
Oh, God.
I think he is, man. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to happen. I just, they are closer to being a quarterback away than the Raiders are. They're closer to being a quarterback away than the Jets are.
Man. You know what? I think we got to wrap this up. I can't take this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just think I think
you can follow the show
that's the case.
at PHNX.
You can follow the show at PHNX_Sun Devils on X, on Instagram, and on TikTok. You can follow me at Anthony_Totri. You can follow the lister at Erik Ruby. That is Erik with a K. You can follow the Deli Man at Shane Dief.
Just listening to these guys chase each other's tails, as always.
And we will see you guys on Wednesday. In the meantime, go Devils in peace.
We all silly like the mayor.